Hey guys, Mr. Crider here. Let's go over 1.2. So same big ideas. These carry over for the entire unit. We talked about these in our class kind of sessions. I'm not going to hit on them again every time, but just know they're here in every single one. So topic 1.2 is all about geographic data. So you should be able to identify different methods of geographic data collection. So one, throw that down here for the slide. So data may be gathered by in the field by organizations or by individuals. So when we talk about field data and kind of the collection of field data, it happens two ways. One is by big organizations. The best example of that is actually the U.S. Census Bureau, which is part of the U.S. Department of Commerce. The Census Bureau primary mission is conducting the U.S. Census, and we actually are just going through this, finished it up, should be finishing it up, but we're actually continuing it because of kind of COVID situation. But every year on the zeros, so it would be 2020, we did it before in 2010, we'll do it again in 2030. There's the U.S. Census. The U.S. Census reallocates House seats for the U.S. House of Representatives. Beyond that, its goal is to count every single person in the United States, and what they do is it helps see where money goes for government block grants and stuff like that. However, data, if it's not gathered by an organization, can be individual people. Interviews, informal observations, that's all data that's being gathered. Geospatial technologies include geographic information systems, GIS, satellite navigation, what you guys know as GPS, remote sensing, online mapping, and visualization. So let's start with the first one, GIS. What is GIS? GIS is Geographic Information Systems. Essentially, all it does is it is a computer program that overlays data with mapping. And what it does is it gives you these different layers that you can pull apart and kind of analyze things. GIS includes all the information that can be tied to a specific place. So layers of information are gathered. So we might have street data and then buildings that are there and vegetation. And when we put these layers together in GIS, you get this kind of map that shows you roads and houses and plants and everything else that's there. GPS is satellite navigation system. GPS receivers on the Earth's surface use the location of multiple satellites to determine and record a receiver's exact location. It uses precise location, borders, navigation, aircraft, cars, trails, fire hydrants. GPS is kind of layered with GIS to give you your navigation system you guys have now, which is in everybody's phone, most cars. You can buy a GPS unit. Remote sensing. So think of this as from a distance. It is collecting data from a distance. So satellite images, sonar readings, plane photographs, all of that stuff is remote sensing. So if you're not in direct contact with it, it is remote sensing. So land use through satellite imagery. Online mapping and visualization is all about maps that we see online. It's not a big deal. Anytime you type in kind of any type of mapping you put in online, Google Maps, Google Earth, that's all online mapping and visualization. So it says spatial information can come from written accounts in the form of field observations, media reports, travel narratives, policy documents, personal interviews, landscape analysis, and photographic interpretation. So we can learn information about space, a particular location. We can learn information from field observations, media reports, travel narratives. This is all we're going to be looking at. So how can we learn stuff about places? Where do we get this information? So geographers are keen observers of phenomenon and collect data about what they see. Technology has made this data collection much more accurate and to kind of pull it back up and reference it. So first one we're looking at is field observations. This is data that is observed and recorded on location or in the field rather than a laboratory or classroom. This data can come through taking notes, sketching maps, counting and measuring things, or interviews as one walks through the area. Media reports. So, problem with media reports. The inherent danger of using media reports, travel narratives, personal interviews, policy documents is everybody has their own bias or opinion. So one thing we need to be aware of, if you kind of look at media reports and stuff like that, they all have something they're trying to say or tell you. That's not necessarily a bad thing at all, but just we have to be referencing that and understand it. Landscape analysis comes from an older Germanic reference to the shape of the land. So when we look at like a desert landscape or a mountain landscape, it gives you kind of an idea of what it represents, and that's landscape analysis. The goal is to study and describe a landscape, determine the impact of humans on that space. That's what we do with this whole class pretty much. Photographic interpretation, they use a lot of this for satellite imagery, trying to analyze things that are changing. Most of these photos comes from planes or satellites, and you can see buildup happening, and if they're building something or new construction, stuff like that. We use this a lot for countries. A good example is what we do with North Korea. Because we don't know what's happening in there, they do a lot of photographic interpretation of North Korea. So they look for new buildings, new development around key areas for military purposes and stuff like that. There are two types of data that we look at. It comes to be either quantitative or qualitative. Quantitative data is hard numbers, something that can be measured and recorded. Qualitative data is often kind of your feelings and kind of your understandings of a place. So quantitative data is often used with GIS because it lends itself to analysis and being mapped in kind of formulas very well. If I tell you an area is developed, what does that mean? Well, I can see it. That's qualitative, not quantitative. Qualitative data gives you geographic understanding of places and the people around them, but you can't analyze it. So this image shows you qualitative data. I can see kind of stores that are in the area and wealth and all that kind of stuff that's hard to measure because it's not quantitative, but I can bring it because I can see that kind of understanding of it there. And that is it for 1.2.